Good evening. We're opening the November 7th.
October 24th.
Yeah, I'm reading this instead of this. Excuse me. October the 24th meeting for the planning board. First on the agenda is our minutes.
Madam Chairperson, if you will hear it, I'll make a motion to accept the draft minutes for the October 10th, 2018 Planning Board meeting with corrections.
Second.
Opening the meeting with corrections. Go ahead, Harry.
I think I only saw one, and there was somewhere in here, oh yeah, it's line 161, it's just a typo. Bailey Lane spelled incorrectly, and that was it. Very good minutes. Kudos to Andrea.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was
I'll
a
pass
good.
the word.
Do you think it's necessary to put in this minute, though, the plowing, that he was gonna be responsible for any damage? Because she just left that part out.
It is in the, it is written in the actual decision,
Okay,
so,
all right.
yeah.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Absolutely.
Okay, Joanne?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The vouchers?
Bet you. Bet you.
Oh, that's me.
Bet you.
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve voucher $52.29 for Staples office supplies, and another voucher for Gatehouse Media, the ad for Healthy Farms recreational marijuana public hearing of $133.60.
Second?
Second, Madam Chairman.
Any questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Do we have anything to sign?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Great. Madam Chairman, given that there's no correspondence, could we go directly to the first of the A&R plans?
Sure.
Town-owned National Ave parcel, 2-lot A&R.
The National Avenue one. Is that you? Is that what it is? Oh,
No, that would be me.
Welcome, John.
Thank
Wanted to
you.
share?
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is,
I
they are
got to
big.
get the plan out. Was hoping that the system would be working, but wait a minute. One second. Plug
Pop
everything
in.
in.
We did pop in.
This would help, as usual.
Be careful. No.
One second. I'll be right with you. So the plan you have before you, that results from the town now owns what's known as the National Ave parcel. It's approximately a 26-acre parcel. And here you can see it on the screen here. And this A&R plan, let me reduce the size a little bit. Okay. And this is National Ave right here, if you follow this. And the parcel boundaries along National Ave from this corner right here to this corner right here. And as we know from a previous plan that the board endorsed, which was about a year and a half ago at this point, and that was for land court purposes, this stretch of land right here that is located between the boundaries of National Ave and the town-owned parcel, again, this is the front boundary of that. This land here is known as parcels 8B and 8C, owned by an abutter. And this particular plan, and I'll go through the note that's inscribed on the plan. This proposed plan would divide into the town-owned parcel, and there's a wetland, a substantial wetland that bisects the entire property east to west. And if you follow that, the cursor here, the arrow, the proposed lot line division, creating two lots out of one, is pretty much right down the middle of the wetland. So this would be, at this point, a non-buildable lot because it does not have direct access to a public way or a way deemed as providing access to the lot. The south lot here actually does have the requisite frontage along National Ave. And see, from that corner, the frontage goes right out to the far side of the physical road of National Ave, the physical part of National Ave being the roadway.
So National Ave is actually an easement on the parcel?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
John, could you point out that note you said you were reading?
oh yeah, so the note that goes along, an important part of this plan, because it's truly not an A&R plan, but it has the potential for planning board approval in that the note right below the planning board signatures, on the far left, it says endorsement of the plan is for conveyance purposes only concerning lots 13A and 13B, both of which shall not be considered buildable until accessibility is provided in accordance with the provisions of Mass General laws and local bylaws.
I'm sorry, Madam, could you tell me where 13B is?
13B, excuse me, what does it say? 13A, oh, that was 13A and 12A. So the second lot listed, that's a,
Should be 12.
geez, I don't know how I didn't catch that one, but that's what the plan says.
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right.
Mr., with that correction noted, and this used to be called, 14 something, 14, what was it called at some point?
The
By the
former,
assessor? What did the assessor refer to this as?
the actual address for the property on the assessing map was 0 National Ave, and it had a map and lot number associated with it
Yeah.
also.
Usually usually the assessor, what the assessor does is if they take something like this, they take that map lot number and they leave the lot number as that number.
Yep.
And then the one that's divided off gets that same number and would be
A.
Yeah.
B or A or something like, they go down the line like that, usually.
Yeah, so that is correct too.
But I mean, for conveyance purposes, this looks fine with that correction. We can
yeah.
make that correction on the Mylar.
Yeah,
The one you just made with 13A?
yeah,
13A and
absolutely.
13B?
And instead of 12A,
It'll be
13B.
13B.
That's just so that the town could actually put the properties out to bid. There's gonna be an RFP involved with it. And they have to go through the statutory requirements of selling the property. So conveyance is selling.
But why would they sell it? What's the purpose if you can't build
well,
on it?
Frontage, I'll just refer to it here, 13A, that would be the south lot.
That you can build on.
That one you can build on. The other one, frontage accessibility is being worked on.
Gotcha.
Nothing can happen on the property until there's frontage. Now, frontage could potentially be created from National Ave, or there's a driveway on the abutting property to the north, and that's already established. And for instance, if the abutting property owner becomes a bidder, and there were actually two parties, private parties, that could be potential bidders that would be able to provide the access to that parcel. So, it's always good to have at least two parties that may want the property.
Not a party without two.
But in any event, just to conclude, I guess, on my part, working with the Economic Development Committee, working with the Board of Selectmen on this, the whole idea is to potentially realize the highest rate of return and for this particular property. And two parcels rather than one. With the two parcels, as I mentioned in the comments report, it's effectively two buildable, potentially buildable parcels separated by a wetland, a substantial wetland. So the only thing that makes sense to possibly create the highest, best return on the property is to separate. Because you can't build one, I mean, you can't build two at the same time or related to one another. That might as well
'Cause the
be the
wetlands
Mississippi
there.
River
Right.
running through.
Makes sense. Sounds like
Yeah.
it's in the best interest of the town.
Yeah,
Is it commercial zoning there?
yeah, it's IB. And there is quite a bit of interest already. It's
Oh,
just,
that's good.
yeah, we just have to create the potential. And that's what this plan is, the first step in doing.
It's right off of the 95, so.
Yeah.
Great access.
These potential interest suggested this option?
No, I did, actually.
You suggested it?
And they understood what I was saying. And
Good
it's
thinking.
actually mentioned in the report that we had done too.
Good thinking. Madam Chair, if you'll hear it, I move to
Sure.
endorse the submitted A&R plan entitled Plan of Land in Georgetown, Mass, prepared by Hayes Engineering. 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Mass, dated 10th of October 2018, consisting of sheet 1 of 1 with the correction made this evening.
I second.
Any more discussion? No? We finished all of it? Bob? Okay, are we ready to vote?
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous approval. Before. Ready for Beverly Drive, right?
Is this a good spot here for the easel, or do you guys have a better
Sure.
place you prefer it? Good evening. For the record, my name is Matt Steinell. I'm from Millennium Engineering. I'm the soil evaluator for the project, septic designer, and I worked extensively with the owner on this property and trying to develop it and come up with a plan that would work good for him. The applicant tonight is Fred Habib. He's the owner here at 18 Beverly Drive. He is the new owner, recently purchased 12 Beverly Drive. And he has torn the house down recently and has started building a new house here that he got permitted with the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission. In doing so, Mr. Habib, when he came to our office, he had indicated that the lot that he was buying had significantly more land than what was required by the zone, and that in the past, his house, the line went through it, and subsequently they'd purchased little slivers to go around it, and he pretty much didn't own anything, not much beyond the edges of his house. So, given that he was purchasing this, he wanted to take the opportunity to adjust the property line to bring this lot down to the minimum size required, to pick up the additional land back here, to give him some more control over directly around his house, and to also take control over the wetland out back to make sure that that was protected and that nobody would be doing anything out that direction. So we hired a wetlands evaluator from West Environmental to come out. They delineated the line. We've been to conservation, as I told you, and they've already reviewed and approved. And after we had a proposed house in there and we knew we could meet the setbacks for that, we went ahead and came up with this proposed new lot line to accommodate what he was looking to accomplish, as well as meet the minimum standards for the zoning requirements. So briefly, this is an R8 district. Minimum requirements 40,000 square feet. We have 80% contiguous, which is 32,000 square feet. We're providing 33,500, so we're over the minimum contiguous upland requirement. Minimum frontage is 150, we have 200 feet of frontage here. We are not changing the frontage on the existing lot for his, we're just changing the point from basically right here back. The line currently bisects his driveway, so we're pulling this over just enough to get his whole driveway on his property, and then angling this out and around the new house that's back here, and then pushing it out back to get all the upland requirements necessary to create the lot. We submitted this plan to the building inspector to make sure he reviewed it and made sure he had no issues with it. He saw that we had the minimum frontage requirement for the minimum depth back that was necessary, which is 160 feet in this zone, 160 feet. I'm sorry, I have that wrong. 160 feet of frontage, 150 feet of depth. So we have the depth, the frontage, the area, the contiguous buildable upland requirement, and it appears to meet all the other department approvals as well as the building inspector's initial cursory review.
And the remaining lot of his existing home, what is the frontage there?
This is existing 100 feet with no proposed changes there.
So he's short.
He's short, but it's currently short, so it's pre-existing non-conforming and there'll be no changes.
Yeah, so that lot line stays, if you see it here. This particular lot line located in between the driveways, yeah, that
That's that first
stays
From here to here, it's the
That's the
same.
existing line.
The existing is the dotted line.
right to that point there, and then it changes.
What's at the top of the plan?
Up here,
Yeah,
off the property,
yeah.
that's another road there, that's Marion's?
Marion Way.
Marion
Marion
Way?
Way?
Okay.
That's parcels on Marion's Way.
Oh, so that's the backyard.
That's-
That's someone else's backyard.
Yeah, this is a stone wall here,
Okay,
that's the property line, so this is parcels on Marion Way.
okay.
And then this is the remaining land of these two parcels that are gonna be conveyed into this lot here.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Those dash lines all represent the
the old
former
lot.
lot lines.
The old lot line.
They're labeled as that.
It's certainly a lot neater.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it certainly
Clean.
makes sense.
I know the owner would appreciate not stepping out of his front porch and worrying whether he steps over the line onto his neighbor. It's right around the house. The top part of his driveway, as you can see on there, isn't even on his property.
Yeah, the existing, the existing shape of the lot is odd. You can see that line, if you extended,
Straight through,
yes.
Be in the middle of the house.
Straight shot, it goes right through his house.
yeah.
It's silly.
The dog steps
So-
off the deck and he's in the neighbor's yard.
This looks to me like a reasonable proposition.
Where is the house on the left? Where's that driveway?
The driveway is right here.
Gotcha, okay.
So this is the existing driveway. The new driveway that's proposed for this is utilizing the same entrance point, it's just at the top here. It takes a little bit harder of a turn and it has a drive under going into the house. So we're utilizing basically the same footprint, which is the reason, when you made the comment about the minimal frontage here, there is enough frontage along both lots for them to comply, but it would require us to move the lot line over beyond his driveway. He wouldn't have access because this site here is super steep. It comes up like 20 feet in a very short distance, so they have to maintain that driveway. So we would like to come into full compliance if we could. That's really the only sticking point that he's unable to modify.
Well, he would.
But you
he
get
could-
grandfather though.
But it's
That's
great,
it,
yeah,
yeah.
it's pre-existing non-conforming, so
What, no, it isn't. Hold on a second. What is the year that this was done?
this house here,
Originally? No, that one. The
this
one
house,
he's living in.
I honestly don't know the year of this. But
Well,
this-
if you
this
don't know
was
the
an old
year,
camp.
then it can't be pre-existing, non-conforming. You don't know what the year is. That's determined by the district change at the time and the frontage. So if there was a way that you could make both of them conform, I think would be the better way.
Agreed, we just don't believe there is.
Why?
Because the septic system has to go here. We have wetlands here and the Conservation Commission won't allow us to modify this. There is a 20-foot incline here over a very short distance, so it's extremely steep. We have one shot for the driveway and that's where it currently is. We can't modify that driveway. In order to comply, we would have to move this line over 50 feet, which would put it over here into the septic system and beyond the existing driveway. So, I can't tell you the age of this right off the top of my head.
My map?
It is on the tax card.
In my map?
And it is pre-existing non-conforming.
Yeah,
We
I'm
did
trying to
review it
dig
with
that up,
the
yeah.
building inspector, so. The lots, at the time they were created, did conform.
But if it is a non-conforming lot right now, assuming it is, we are not, none of the actions we'd be taking this evening would make it
More
less
non-conforming.
conforming or
Correct.
more non-conforming.
Correct, this would make it more conforming, not necessarily more conforming, but no
less
No less, because they currently conform for area and,
And this is a much more rational configuration, I mean, to these eyes.
Well,
For the reality of where the houses are, where the driveway is, and now it's one single piece of property in essence. Two lots, one piece of property.
yeah, in a sense, we're taking a bunch of encroachments, whether it's the driveway off the property, the top part of the driveway off, the house that was originally bisected by it, and we're making it reasonable for somebody to actually own and live there without having, like I said, step off the porch and end up on the neighbor's property. This is a much more usable layout.
And considering that there's no change to the frontage in the proposed lot 2,
John, do you have a letter from Les about this?
He did provide one. I mean, the only reason we would even entertain what they're proposing is that they're not changing the frontage for that particular
No,
lot.
they're gonna rebuild the house. You already tore it down and you started building it.
They've already started building it, because with the current
Right
lot
where
line-
it is before?
It's
You
it's
couldn't
ever-
build that anywhere else?
It's ever so slightly further back, but the Conservation Commission wouldn't allow us to get closer to the wetland.
I'm just a little concerned that you really needed a special permit. You need a variance from the zoning board
For what?
For what
because of the frontage. I mean, you're not meeting the requirement of the zoning.
We're not changing it though, and again, it was
You're,
pre-existing.
no, you're not changing it. You can't change it. But our zoning, that is.
Right.
But I
Right.
thought that lot had the frontage.
This lot has the frontage.
Yeah, that's fine, but the other one doesn't, and we're going.
We're not changing this lot. This lot is not being built on.
They're not touching that one.
Yeah.
So
but-
they can pull a building permit here with the current configuration. If you denied this plan tonight and they had to
Doesn't
keep the configuration the way it is, they'd still be eligible to pull a building permit
Yeah.
and reconstruct this home because it's pre-existing non-conforming. It's a house that's an old cabin that was one of the original cabins when this whole area was built up. It's very old. And it currently conforms, and they could go pull a building. They have gone and pulled a building permit even prior to you considering this lot line change. So they're eligible to reconstruct that house and are doing so today. That foundation is being poured.
I mean, in effect, all you're trying to do is create separate lot status for those two existing driveways, clean up the titles of the property, and this is what it looks like now. This is the,
It was built in 49?
yes.
Oh, wait a minute, are we
Which
in the
house?
right lot? We're not in
Hold
the
on,
right
no,
lot,
this
are
is,
we?
this is the
That's
one.
it, right?
This is,
That one wasn't built in 49. Check that one out, 18 Beverly Drive.
Probably the cabin was probably built in 49.
Yeah.
The cabin was.
Yeah.
But not his house.
Few additional details, John, in there?
Yeah,
Few
20
additional
cars.
details?
Pull up, yeah. 2018.
which one,
That
this
Try
one
that.
right here?
Try that one, see what happens there.
No, pull up
There you go.
2018. Oh,
There you go,
okay.
year built, 1979.
Yeah, see? We already had zoning then.
Mhm.
And the district was as well established in the 70s, 73, I believe.
But it must have gotten approved though.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, somehow.
Something happened.
Get caught within 10 years.
Something
yeah.
happened here that
And I'm-
caused this to happen, this piece of land to be transferred from the abutting property to this property. And to me, it looks like the house was built in the wrong location, overlapping the
Absolutely.
existing lot. So they created this exception here. But in all likelihood, right, this lot, say whenever it was created, it must have been 100 feet of frontage at the time.
Wasn't Beverly Drive created by the selectmen in the 50s?
I wasn't around then.
But
I
now,
remember doing some,
let me get back out here. See, the other thing.
What I'm
Yeah.
trying to get at is to make it as conforming as we can,
Yeah.
you know, and to clean it up for you.
Sure.
But if you're gonna just continue the error, and the error is gonna follow, it'll never get cleaned up. You're always gonna have a problem. If he sells, Mr. Habib sells his house, he's gonna have another problem.
Well, what would be,
No.
what would be the process if this was to become a, what was the term you
It's
used?
a non-conforming lot.
Yes.
And it is one already.
Right, but I mean, if,
Only if it was done in fifties.
how would you get an exception? How would one get an exception to the ZBA?
CBA, yes,
ZBA.
that's their job. They
They
do
would
the
have to,
variances.
yeah, they would have to show that they weren't doing something that was creating a more non-conforming lot.
See, I have no problems with this plan, but if that's a must,
It's
Then-
not. It's not a must. We've already talked to the building inspector. In order for us to go to the ZBA, we have to first apply to him and get a denial, and he has to tell us the reason for the denial. This is as I said, it's pre-existing. This was here at the time. They obtained building permits. Both lots were there. So the only thing that we would be going to the ZBA for would not be for a variance. If he did require us, it would be for a finding to determine that what we're proposing is no more detrimental than the current configuration. I think we're all in agreement that this is an improvement.
oh,
And I can't see any way in which the zoning department would say, if we were required to, which the building inspector is not requiring us to, if we were required to, I don't see any situation where anybody would say this is more detrimental.
And that would only happen if you were going to pull a building permit on lot 2, for work on lot 2.
Potentially, correct, because
If
this
you
one
were.
here, we've already pulled the building permit.
Right, you've got it, and it's
This
no-
one
it's
again,
no-
without changing the lot lines, if we were to withdraw the application tonight,
You
he could
still
still
go.
keep right on going with what he's doing on this lot here currently, and the problem remains as it is and has been, 50 years.
So in other words, when Mr. Habib built his house, he was encroaching on his abutter's property.
I don't know whether or not Mr. Beebe was
It
the
was
one who
nineteen
built it.
seventy-nine, we
Yeah.
didn't change anything.
No, I'm not sure if he was the one who built it or if he bought it after it was built.
Well,
but
whoever
yes,
did.
Whoever built it at the time,
Yeah,
there appears to be an error there. and
absolutely, that's
they-
wrong, totally.
So they
Corrected.
weren't doing their job when the house was
Somebody
built.
messed up.
Somebody probably didn't ask for an as-built back then. Like nowadays, they're much more efficient about this. You go build your foundation before you get a framing permit. They want an as-built to make sure the foundation's in the right spot because it's a lot cheaper to move a foundation when there isn't a house on it. So they want to know at that early stage if it conforms. So we go out, we do an as-built, then they get their framing permit. What likely happened is they built this, obtained an occupancy permit, moved in, and then somewhere after that, they realized the issue, and between the owners at that time, deeded enough land to make it conform, or not conform,
Livable.
but to get it on the property, yeah, and now we're at this point here where we wanna make the adjustment to make it more reasonable.
But they only deeded it, they didn't go to any board to get any permission to do it.
What it also appears to be with this particular roadway, Beverly Drive, whenever it was built, if you look at this map up here, there are real various types of frontage. Like that probably measures 70 feet. That's 55 feet. Say that one's 100.
Yeah, all the way through.
This
Nothing's uniform.
is right.
This
This
was
could
done
have
by
been
the
a double
selectmen.
lot here.
That's right.
And then this is the one we're talking about, it has 100 feet of frontage. And again, the only reason they could come before us in the manner of which they're proposing, and it's a lot line relocation. That's what it is, but they're not touching the existing frontage of the lot. They're touching it from,
Right.
this line here going back and reconfiguring the lot, but they're not touching the existing frontage. That's the only reason they could come before us.
Well-
In the manner that they're
Yeah,
doing.
but if he had made this here, like, straight down, made it 100 and 100,
That's where the house is,
and,
the existing house.
they
It's right
tore
there.
down, which one? They tore that one down, the little one?
Right, but the Concom
gone.
wouldn't let them get any closer to
Can't
the
move back.
wetland.
They only can move
Right.
back a little
No,
bit.
no,
Yeah.
once you tear down a house, you consider it, as far as zoning is concerned, is that it never was there. Once it's demolished, you gotta think of it as a new lot. No house ever there before. That's per zoning. That's why I'm wondering,
But
is this the right way, or do you have anything in writing with Les? We'd have to go along with with his recommendation. That would be great if you had anything in writing.
But Concon wouldn't
To-
let you
to
move
what?
that far, right?
To what respect? Les has issued a building permit. He's already reviewed this and made a determination that it was a buildable lot.
I'd like to see, well, how does the board feel? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to see his handwriting on this.
Well,
Can I just mention?
Otherwise, we're gonna be the ones responsible.
Yeah, but all they're doing is making more usable and
What's already
clearing
in
the
existence.
title of that abutting property. They're putting the driveway for the property on the right, they're putting that driveway on its own lot. So there's no easements involved with the abutting lot. And they're not changing the front lot lines, mostly because.
That's why it's non-conforming.
Well,
But we're not
mostly
creating a
because
new
it's a
non-conforming.
geography issue. It's a steepness of the slope. So the only place they can put the driveway for the new property, the new house, is where it exists right now.
Yeah.
And they're bending it into the garage that they've designed. Now, if the board was not to sign this, said, hey, live with what you have, well, all that does is create the need for an easement, to be formalized between the properties relative to the driveway that encroaches on the new house lot. We'll call it the new house lot on the left. And live with that rather funky lot line, just continue living with this, that notched out
Yeah.
parcel, which, just, it exists, and they'll be able to, continue building the house and live in the house and nothing will change. They just have to organize themselves with an easement. So all we're doing with our action, the planning board, it's not nullifying any standing law or anything. It's just we're lot line relocating between two property lines. And we're not changing any frontage.
The way I look at it, the fact that it's not changing existing frontage,
If it was, we wouldn't be able to
Couldn't
do
do
it.
this, yeah.
But I read through a bunch of cases on this recently, and the planning board would have the authority to waive the frontage. That's a different matter than if they have to go before the ZBA for not having sufficient frontage in proposing to subdivide a property.
I'd like to see that case.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard of that.
That's
That's-
Smalley. It's a real famous case, but they were short 2.5 feet of frontage with an A and R plan.
That's-
Well, they got a variance.
See how, that's what
You
I
know
mean,
this
it's very
case.
precise.
Yeah, so what happened was, they got a variance from the local ZBA for the two lots to be
Yeah.
created.
Right.
Planning board denied the A and R per variance, and it's the first time this really came up. And, the board refused to sign the plan, it was appealed, and, what the judgment was, planning board, you're really not being reasonable about this. You're finding and not signing the plan. You have the authority to waive it, there's sufficient frontage, it was already granted a variance. And, the variance allowed for the zoning variation from the 100 to 98.6.
They might have been, the planning board could have been, in their bylaws, they could have been the one to give that final say. I just think that it's a reflection on the planning board if we're gonna go along with this obvious error after error after error.
I would agree with that, but I don't think it's negative. I think this is reasonable. I think that.
Definitely.
When you look at the frontage on these other lots,
Yeah.
it's obvious this neighborhood was not built to spec.
No, it was built, that was built in the
50s?
planning
You got
board
it?
never even approved it.
Was there a planning board?
No, the board of selectmen acted as the planning
Yeah,
board.
So,
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
I mean,
This was
without,
before, this
without,
was before zoning.
without wading down memory lane too
55,
much,
50 something, 50s, somewhere in the 50s.
there's a ball game coming up.
I'm not worried for two reasons, Tilly, to be honest with you. I'm not concerned at all. Because number one, if Les had even an inkling of an issue, this guy would be sitting in front of the ZBA right now with a denial, a building permit denial in his hand.
All right.
And two, right underneath where we would sign. Endorsement of this plan shall not be an indication, expressed or implied, that the parcels or structures shown on this plan conform to the applicable zoning
Oh,
requirements.
so it already has that.
Right there, right
Oh,
underneath.
oh, yeah,
the blur.
yeah, once you approve it, it'll be there, yeah.
I'm good with it.
They are making it better. They can't make it perfect, but at least they're trying to make it better.
Step by
Yeah.
step.
Yeah.
There's a lot of non-conforming lots in this community that are never gonna get
No,
fixed.
no, but that's
And-
because they don't have an opportunity to do like this.
I mean,
The lot is already
move it-
small,
Yeah.
and you can't divide it any more than it is.
I
Whereas
think
this
the-
time you have a
have to
big
play
piece
it
of land.
trick.
If you
and
move
the-
that line,
have
if
a-
you did move that line,
Okay,
then the Concom would say you can't build a house.
all right.
Because they already said you can't push the house that
closer.
further back.
Yeah, no closer.
Because the existing house is outside of 100, so they're not gonna let you encroach if you have the ability to be outside of 100.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that he already got a building permit, that to me, that's why I'm looking for something in writing, for myself. I wanna see what Les determined here, so that,
He only tore down the house because he was assured that he'd be able to get a building permit.
now that house was coming down whether he tore it down or not. I remember being in that
Yeah, but
house,
it's a buildable lot.
yeah. Of course it is, but is it a conforming building or a non-conforming?
None of those lots are conforming. That's another case law, that, you know, you run into the averages of what the dimensions are and the frontages are of these older properties that
Yeah.
predate zoning. And, you know, you come up with the law of averages as a determining factor in approval,
Right.
rather than, you know, what's on the books today.
Right, right,
We'd all be in legal nonconformity just about,
Yeah.
if we had to conform to today. And the only reason we can entertain it is they're not changing the front lot line. That front lot line was the front lot line length since this property was subdivided, just as those other smaller lots
Yeah.
were years ago.
When they created Beverly Drive.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, they tried to settle it among themselves by changing the deeds. But they never did get it an official line. So
You
you
go
know,
back far enough that, you know, subdividing property didn't
No,
need
he-
anybody's authority other than you registered the land at the
Well,
registry of deeds.
Yeah, you know,
Here's four stakes.
he's telling us
Thank you
this
for giving
without
me the
any
cow.
backup. I mean, you know, how did you fill out the application? I
It's-
mean, there's nothing, there's so many blanks here.
No, that's because it's number one. The accompanying plan is not a subdivision because the plan does not show a division of land. All it's doing is relocating lot lines between two already subdivided parcels.
Tilly, I'm going for it, if you'll hear it.
That would be.
Madam
you're-
Chair,
you're-
Madam Chair, I'm gonna almost verbatim read the motion, except I'm gonna say I move to endorse the
Okay.
Form A application,
And-
for plan of land, Georgetown, Mass. Lot line adjustment survey, 12 and 18 Beverly Drive. Assessors map 21, lot 135 and 136, prepared by Millennium Engineering, 62 Elm Street, Salisbury, dated October 15th, 2018, consisting of sheet 1 of 1.
Second.
Any more discussion? Nope, you ready to vote?
Aye.
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 No.
Guys have it.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Do you have a Mylar? Do you have a Mylar?
I was
Yeah.
told the Mylar was submitted.
It's here. It's here. Do you wanna?
Every town's a little
Those in the affirmative wanna sign in?
See, every town's a little different. Salisbury doesn't want the Mylar, but they're afraid to lose it, so I have to bring it to the meeting. And I was told by the surveyor in the office, your department took it, and so they had it.
And we lost it.
There you go. Indigo pen there. Should put any other signature stuff in that. Can I see real quick? That's not showing that. And, this is National Lab. You guys can sign the appropriate line.
Freestanding sign?
Yeah, yep, that would be next.
No one is here for the
No.
Georgetown Building Supply?
No, I told them
Freestanding sign?
if the board would, want me to, I could explain what the
Okay.
situation is. For a while now. Hopefully you guys can have your time, what most of the meeting.
Well, Joe's gonna change that, right? Changing that? 13B? That's gonna be 13B, Joe?
Details get signed.
You scan and send you a PDF of the signed version? Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night. Yep, you too.
All right, thank you.
13B?
Right.
Yeah.
John, how come the applications aren't being completed for these A&Rs? There's no explanation on these.
Well, that one is, that one we just dealt with. All they did
All
was
of it.
circle one. That's indicating that that's the reason why we're dealing with it. It wasn't an A&R plan, it's a lot line relocation, lot line adjustment plan. Mass general laws don't provide for that type of description of an A&R plan, for whatever reason. In other states, they do. They just haven't gotten around to taking in all of the possibilities of plans.
Maybe our application needs to be updated or something?
Are there two of them?
Well, there's a case where it's a perimeter plan, but a perimeter plan does not provide or allow for lot line relocation. It's just the zoning and our rules and regulations in state statute in Massachusetts are void of language having to deal with lot line relocations.
I just think there should be more explanation.
Because she didn't, she wasn't asked for it.
Any chance you can
See, and then, like the one we just had, Mike put in, the plan does not create buildable parcels. Put that in. So you're going to, why did he do that?
Yeah, it's,
Town hall.
Well, that's the truth. It doesn't, endorsement of that plan
that'd be great.
is for nothing other than for conveyance purposes. We're not,
Yeah, I understand that, but he could have put that in there. If you're trying to bid out a property.
Uh-huh.
Every day.
but the caveat is
Tomorrow
until
on.
such time.
Yeah,
There's gonna be something that I've signed up for.
Yeah. I do have to work.
okay, are we ready for the next thing? The freestanding sign.
Healthy Farms?
Georgetown Building Supply freestanding sign?
Oh,
You don't have one?
yeah. I thought we were trying to do that, but that's okay.
We're not gonna do that?
I didn't, I must be mistaken.
Okay, John, go for it.
Okay. The applicant unfortunately is not able to be here this evening. They had a family emergency they had to take care of. So I said to the applicant that I would do my best to convey to the planning board what needs to be done here. We did get a legal opinion in regard to this issue, and the issue calls for the applicant wanting to put a new freestanding sign on the property known locally as Georgetown Building Supply. So you have within that complex, Georgetown Supply, Honeydew, Georgetown Liquors, the Stone Pantry, Team and League Outfitters, and Hydraulics Company. So that would be a total of 6 companies that are in the plaza, of which there is no freestanding sign within the property at this point. And this property does have an approved site plan, amended site plan involving it. And that is, the last time there was a change of use that required site plan approval, that was Honeydew Donuts. And the attachment in the comments report is attachment C, and that's the actual site plan that was involving the Honeydew Donut application. Do you see it?
Was Honeydew before or after the hydraulics place? I thought Honeydew's was before the hydraulics place. I thought we approved the hydraulics place most recently.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but in any event, this is the Honeydew Donut site plan.
Okay.
So the question that was posed to town council, because we really needed a legal opinion relative to what permit, local permit or permits are necessary for the issuance of a freestanding commercial sign. The sign ordinances as they exist today are not clear in this regard. So the question was, does this need site plan approval, minor site plan approval, because it already has an approved site plan associated with it, and a freestanding sign could be considered by the board minor? Or because, and this was included in the legal opinion too, if the proposed sign was not going to eliminate parking, especially required parking, then the board could consider just allowing for the building permit to be issued for the sign, and that you could authorize me to sign off on the building permit application as it gets circulated around by the department heads. So here we are this evening, we have a rendering of the sign, and purports to be 60 square feet, which is the maximum allowed, and that's a formula. If it's 60 square feet or less, and the less would be 15% of the facade of the structure. Well, 15% of the facade of that structure would be a much more sizable sign than the 60 square feet that's proposed. So you go with the lesser, and the lesser size is the 60 square feet as they're proposing. And then the sign has to be at least 15 feet set back from the front lot line. The building at the same time has to be set back at least 30 feet from the front lot line in that zone, which it does. It extends much farther back than 30 feet, the plaza complex.
So my one question I'd have,
Yeah.
when we did the site plan, did we notate where the sign was supposed to be?
Negative.
We never put it in?
Nope. We allowed them to pull out the old
Oh,
one.
okay, that's all.
And we never, I think we touched upon it, but it was something.
The old one, we certainly did,
No, I mean, touched upon the idea that there would be a sign at some point.
but you never
But
put
they-
it down on the
but they never
plan.
put it on a plan. There was something they
Ah.
put off for later.
Okay,
But I guess this is later.
I have a question. It's not going to using up any parking spots, right? You said that?
This is where it would be located, and that's that display.
Oh, yeah.
All those little displays like freestanding signs in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
But
To show what things they
yeah.
could do for you
Yeah,
and stuff, yeah.
I
That's
am
towards
so
the south
glad
end.
that, of this
Yeah.
sign. I mean, this is AA plus.
Yeah.
Than what was there,
Mm-hmm.
where people were constantly coming to the planning office. Are we in Danvers? Because it was, do you remember that sign? Danvers Building Supply, and it was yay big, and it was
Yeah.
a monster.
Yeah, it was
So
blocked.
this is beautiful.
Yeah,
and that's a big blow up of it. I blew it up a little bit better.
yeah.
And
If
it
that-
says
So it meets all the
Georgetown.
requirements.
It actually says,
Now, just to give you a little bit of a historical perspective, they've been trying to get a yay or nay for well over 6 months,
Oh, my goodness.
From who, though?
the town.
That's
So,
not fair.
Well, I know, that's why I said, here, I'll try to do what I can this evening and see, if we can get
Definitely.
it definitive. But, my suggestion is, if I may, since it complies and that's technically Les's job. See, a planning board's job with site plan review for a sign is to make sure it's located properly and that it does meet whatever the sign ordinances provide for. But the actual authority in Mass General Law for issuing a sign that complies with zoning is with the building inspector.
Absolutely.
And then if that sign it varies from what's allowed, the permit granting authority for that sign is the ZBA.
Right.
And planning board has no authority other than,
Yeah.
hey, can we see what you want for a sign on your site plan? And that's basically our jurisdiction.
Yeah. I thought we did, but you're saying you checked that out, huh?
I didn't check it out, I don't remember.
I
it
thought we
being
put
there.
it where and I didn't check it out either, so I'm happy with it. If that's where they wanna put it.
I'm
But
just a
I-
little concerned
I
if it's
thought it
not
was-
30 feet. I mean,
No, it has
I'd
to
feel
be-
a lot more comfortable if this came in, this is very similar to the way we did the sign at Crosby's, at the Crosby lot. But the Crosby one was done differently because it actually gave us dimensions. It was drawn out, it was shown on the plan, it was scaled, we knew how far back it was, cause,
if there was somebody standing next to this, you'd have some sense.
yeah, or I don't want him laying down next to it. And I wanna know how tall the guy was, because it doesn't look like 30 feet to me.
I would have thought if I had my druthers to put that sign where we broke up the parking lot in the middle and put that sign there.
Oh,
Where they had the tree
The
planting.
the
brush.
dimensions are very, very, very slight on your plans, but you can see them.
Oh.
It's 183 inches.
Yeah, it's
in height.
basically 14 feet tall and 8 feet across on the crown. These are 20 inches.
Oh, no, John, I don't mean this, I mean on the plan itself,
Oh, yeah.
that it's 30 feet back from the lot line.
Yeah, but it only, technically, by law, it only has to be 15 feet back. The building has to be at least 30 feet back.
Oh, I thought it was 30 feet it had to be back.
No, it's 15 feet,
Really?
yeah. I
And-
mean, ultimately,
that's-
that dimension, Les would have to pay attention to.
Well, if it was on our site approval, then we could deal with it, but if it wasn't even there, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Les should take care of it.
Yeah. And, in talking with Les all this time, as long as I sign off on it, and the only way I can sign off on it is getting the authority of the planning board,
Yeah.
just so it's all on the up and up.
I say sign off.
I'm gonna channel
he-
Rob for a minute in his absence. How are they lighting it?
I thought you were gonna say trees.
No, how are they lighting it?
I
We'll
don't think,
get to
I don't
How are they
think
lighting it?
I don't see any
It would
lights.
have to be cast down. It doesn't show any lighting here.
Oh.
Is it internally lit? Is it,
And that could be a possibility,
can we get a little more information on that?
yeah.
It's a
If it, if that is a translucent illuminated sign, what do you wanna do?
Find out more?
It
Can we
has to
table
meet
this
the
to the next
zoning.
meeting and find out?
Do the
get a
neighbors
little bit
want a
more
light that's
information?
on all night?
Yeah. maybe
It
we
has
can
to
get a little
meet
more
the
info.
zoning, period, as far as I'm concerned. That's
That's
Les's
right.
problem.
Right.
It can't
It
be
is.
illuminating. It
You know,
can't be-
Les just didn't want to say step out of line, basically. And have the board all upset about this. But
Yeah.
the reality is that as the building inspector, he has the statutory authority to
Yeah.
issue sign permits that comply. In the legal opinion, he says that. But if it was part of the site plan
Yeah.
approval, then
Yeah.
our job is just to make sure, that it complies with zoning.
That's,
Yeah, well,
it's
this is why-
located on our
This is
approval.
why we ended up doing the Crosby's one, this is why we ended up doing the Dunkin' Donuts one.
Right.
That's because those are all done with
on the site approvals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
That's,
One other question, is sightlines on the other side? It looks, it's hard to make out,
Mhm.
but it looks like they're trees on this side of the road. I don't recall, but they're gonna block that sign if there are trees that way.
I think that tree's further down though. Isn't that tree in front of the,
Yeah, this is the closest
But-
one
Okay,
there.
see-
Right,
building.
yes,
Veterans?
exactly, but I'm
The,
thinking that from the car.
yeah.
who was it?
I could give you a view of that in 2 shakes.
The Knights of Columbus.
Well, we have a lot of questions, and would it be inordinate to table this to the next meeting when we'll have, John's heard some of the questions, we'll have some more information, and the applicant could be here with the answers?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, as long as it wasn't on our site approval, it's up to Les. It's already been, how many months? 6 months? They've been waiting for an answer?
No idea why it hasn't
Yeah.
come to us before now. As far as I know, it was last Thursday.
We're not very pleasant, I guess.
Oh, last Thursday, so.
You know, it just wouldn't have gone anywhere unless we got a legal opinion. You know, and unless it came here as a site plan, so. we-
And it did. This
Yeah.
was a site plan.
Here's,
And I think the hydraulics place was the last one. That was the most recent
I'll
one.
go down here and look, turn around.
That's the place in the back,
Mhm.
right? On a separate building, yeah.
They'll keep turning.
There you go. So that sign appears, it's right there. Might be a little bit blocked out from
Yeah,
the,
because you're on this side and
Yeah.
you're back here. You're out of this guy's perspective,
yeah.
and that would be pretty blocked.
Okay.
Can you turn around and see the Dunkin' Donuts one there, John?
Yeah, hold on. It's down the road. Whoop, hold on.
This was really neat.
You get a little car sick though.
Yeah. That'd be funny if I saw my car there.
I read a story the other day,
It's like Big Brother watching.
Yeah.
somebody saw their significant other with somebody else in one of these.
Oh my God.
Sounds like folklore, but
Wow.
Jeez.
Is that, do we know the dimensions of this sign?
that one there.
It's fatter. It's wider.
It's wider, yeah, it does look
And
wider.
it's-
Not as tall though.
Right.
Right, the other one was sitting up
Mm.
on long legs.
Which is probably why they were doing that, because of the trees.
Could be.
Mm.
We don't
But
have-
really, if it's not in our jurisdiction, this is just fun.
It's Les's problem. Tell him to get moving, 6 months is long enough.
I disagree with that. I think because we have the site plans, it's our,
Can we have a 3-1
our
vote,
value.
please?
Go for it. Do it.
We have a 3-1, another split. Just so
You
they
wanna have
can,
a
they
vote
wanna
for
be
that?
able, they actually wanna be able to build
No,
this
Harry,
thing
you're-
before the end of the year, if
Your point
possible.
is well taken. I don't want to delay these folks, but if it is in our jurisdiction, then we should pick up the ball.
And we should, and that's why I'm saying table this till the next meeting, when they can be here, when we can have answers to the questions, when someone could make the appropriate motion to make a modification.
One of the things is, they had a freestanding sign that was taken down, they agreed to that. And I wasn't here for when the most recent amended site plan was approved, but was there, if anybody recalls, an outstanding issue relative to the freestanding sign? Did they give them the blessing to get a permit in the future for it, or?
It was mentioned, but it wasn't on the table at that time.
See, truly in a very technical sense, right? Les is the building inspector, he's the zoning administrator. He is the issuer of building permits for single-family homes and duplexes. And typically, signs that comply. Signs that don't comply, jurisdiction of the ZBA. Planning board doesn't have any role to play other than see them on the plan, and
Right, it's not a requirement when you put up a sign that it has the site approval. The
No,
require-
no, I understand. It's
Well,
just that in the past, we've
Are
done
we,
it.
okay, so from, in the future, say, once we do a site approval plan, and in the future they change the sign, are we gonna hear it again? No,
They change it.
I doubt
if
it.
It's shown on the plan.
yeah.
Interesting. If they change the,
If they change the sign.
the dimensions of the sign, or the way
No,
the sign
that's
is
the building
illuminated.
inspector's responsibility. He's gotta follow the zoning. We can't say it's okay to put a sign if it doesn't meet the zoning. That's not our responsibility. That's the ZBA to say, if it doesn't meet zoning, you need a variance for it.
Harry, you-
I'm thinking that we have to approve the placement of it. And by doing so, we're also looking at the dimensions of it.
Is there anything in writing to say who does what?
yeah. But
Well,
Harry,
legal
Harry,
opinion.
as a neutral
I-
party, as a neutral party, with an interest in this, because I've been involved with it for way too long, I don't think it's fair to disagree with Tilly's findings by you. Any more than it was.
It's not fair to disagree. Wow,
Any more than it was,
I got somebody on
that it was
record.
inappropriate from the previous one we dealt with earlier tonight.
Watch
So
out.
you each got one.
So if there's a 3-1 vote, the vote
I think
prevails.
maybe you guys wanna do that.
Is he a diplomat or what?
Well put.
All right.
He's like, breaks into lawyer talk.
I
every
know,
once in a
doesn't he? Well,
What did he say?
while. Right,
It
right.
was meant to not to
Goes
be
around.
understood.
Those were great words. What the?
To wit.
all right.
All right.
So are we voting or not?
So moved if
Are we-
anybody wants to move.
Do you want to, is there any request?
There's a motion right there, the first one, probably most preferable and most accommodating.
My motion was to table it to the next meeting, but I didn't get a second, so.
Okay.
Did you make a motion? I didn't.
You didn't make a motion.
I'll make a motion to table this to the next meeting,
A second.
when we can have more information.
Okay, that's fine.
And that'll give Rob an opportunity to chime in too with the lighting, with the lighting.
yeah.
And the trees, and the trees.
I'm not gonna, and whatever
It's-
other
I-
thing may
you know, I
properly
knew
come
this was
before the
gonna be
board.
long. The simplest thing is gonna be the longest. Watch out.
I
Call
just
the
hope-
question?
I just hope
3
the
minutes.
Sox
Motion
are
to
ahead.
table?
I haven't started quite
Table
yet.
till the next meeting. So moved and it's third, seconded, 3-1.
Okay,
To move it to next meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you all voted. Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
No,
All right, 3-1.
sorry.
That's fine, it's okay.
If I was a voting member, I'd be with you in this, but I'm
Thanks,
not.
John.
The Revolutionary Committee over here is in charge, right? This is what
You know, when I first got on the board, it was because Tilly, I remember this from the so-called guy over there. Tilly, you got so much experience in special permits and variances. Nobody else on the board has it.
No, they don't.
But he doesn't listen to me.
But we have one more item.
Oh.
We have just signing the decision of
Oh,
approval.
signatures.
We need a healthy farm signature. You did a very,
We know who we are.
John, you did a good job on getting the
Thank you.
decision written all together in one piece.
Yeah.
Are we ready to
That's not,
sign it?
that's not the approval.
That's not it.
Here, Tilly has the original.
So what should I do with this?
You can give that back
Chuck
to me.
it.
Sorry about giving that to you. I'm gonna run downstairs and I'll be back in.
If we're not here,
Yeah.
we're,
Everything will be signed.
We're gonna be gone in one shake.
All right, so to sign two spur.
Oh,
You know, the,
you know something? The registry, I don't believe the registry of deeds has your signature on file.
What do I have to do?
There's like a form that we.
yeah.
yeah, when you get
Fill
from the
out.
clerk.
At town hall?
The clerk
No,
might
it's here,
have
we
it.
have it. No, that's us, we have it.
We have it?
Yep.
Okay.
I just hope the people watching realize what fun it is to be on the planning board. And they should be lining up to
Yeah.
join our merry band.
Absolutely.
Oh, is
we're
that,
the
that,
The
funnest
giggles
board.
never stop.
is that
Absolutely, we're the funnest board there
Giggles
is.
never stop.
a left-handed?
With our host.
A left-handed compliment over there, huh?
Well, let's just hope the Sox are ahead.
They better be, huh?
Start yet.
It's nice and cold, so they should have no complaints.
Isn't it like 8:10?
8:09, yeah.
Oh, 8:09.
I don't believe.
What is
it's
8:09? How do you go with 8:09?
That's what I'm talking about, this is.
Sea East Coast.
Okay, are we ready to
an LA
finish
thing.
this Did you all sign this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank
Anything
you.
else cooking?
Ready for
All
Motion to
right, so our
adjourn?
next meeting is not on the normal schedule, right?
Right, it's the 7th of November.
7th of November, yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.